So I'm very excited to be here today. This is the first time that I've presented this device to anybody. And the problem is that for the last 70 years, there's really been no change. We've been performing lumbar fusion procedures to provide stability after decompression. The problem is that leaves the spine in a completely opposite state. It's not moving. It's supposed to move. Each one of those discs are called a motion segment. So fusion, which has been the case for the last 7 years, has its problems. The market space in this situation is huge, projected to be about 18 million in 2030. Our device represents a very simple and pure solution. It is a lumbar facet replacement device, akin to an artificial hip or knee joint replacement device. Through this process, we have utilized consultants to get us to where we are, and we're basically, in effect, ready to do an IDE study moving forward. So I'm a practicing neurosurgeon, and it's very common that somebody will show up with monoradicular pain, meaning pain from a nerve being compressed, secondary to the facet joint being too big. In order to decompress that nerve, I have to remove the facet. If I do that, I destabilize the segment, meaning I have to then fuse that patient, leaving that patient with the antithesis of what's supposed to occur at that motion segment. That changes the biomechanics as how the spine handles load and create undue load transfer to the levels both above and below the fused segment, creating something called adjacent segment disease. Meaning you can then chase your tail, you did a fusion at one level, now you're having to do a fusion at another level, and so on. That's why artificial lumbar discs were developed, to try to address this problem. The problem is that it's contraindicated if there's facet degenerative disease there in terms of implanting that device. And we feel that our device represents a very simple solution. The market, again, as I said, is huge. 11.4 billion in 2021, projected to be 18 billion in 2030. This is speaking to a population where the degenerative process occurs in everybody. It's inescapable. There's no pill that you're going to take that's going to stop this. So it's an ever-evolving, ever-enlarging patient population that our device speaks to. Basically, in the past, the approach to creating a facet replacement device has been one in which it's an artificially designed contraption, if you will, to reproduce all the vectors of movement in the spine. What we're looking at is a lumbar spine-specific device where the primary vector of motion is flexion and extension. The facet joint's not that complicated. It's two bones talking to each other with lubrication in between and a capsule. That is reproduced in cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. The only thing that changes is the articulation angle. That's what drives the function of the facet. And in the lumbar region, the primary vector of movement is flexion and extension. Our device seeks to reproduce that anatomy. So by reproducing the anatomical structure of the facet joint, the intent is then to reproduce that function. The key is the articulation angle, as I said, and our device, which is enclosed to represent or reproduce the facet capsule, is designed to be lumbar spinal level specific. So those angles then change at the different levels. It's made out of chromium, cobalt, and ultra-high molecular polyethylene, the same materials that are used in today's artificial hip and knee joints, the same materials that are already FDA approved for multiple cycles of movement through the life of the device. Surgeons basically want devices that are conceptually appropriate, they're easy to implant, and they work. We deal with anatomy every day. I'm a practicing neurosurgeon. That's how our brains work. This is an anatomic facet replacement. Previous iterations designed to try to move in all the different vectors, but frankly in the lumbar region that's not required. 91% of the movement is flexion and extension. There's been a new device that breached the market in facet arthroplasty very recently. It's called TOPS by Premier Spine in Israel. It is a bilateral device. They did all the hard work for us. They established the CPT billing codes, the pre-certification, the hospital facility costs, and the surgeon reimbursement. The problem is we have a much better device. Our device is unilateral. That allows the surgeon to be customized in terms of their delivery of care. If you have a bilateral device, you have to remove everything. With ours, you only remove the part that's messed up, leaving the normal structures there so that our device, in effect, works in concert with the spine. It's not a spinal takeover. Implantation is very simple. It's the same as today's lumbar fusion procedures. The only difference is instead of putting a 5.5 millimeter rod to the pedicle screws, you place our device, but it's exactly the same fashion, using exactly the same polyaxial pedicle screws that are used in today's fusions. Where we're at now, we have 4 US patents with another pending. We have an international European patent with another pending. We have an Australian patent, and we have a Canadian patent pending. We have strategic partnerships with Precision Spine, who will be providing us with the pedicle screws through testing and the IDE study. We had the opportunity to meet with the FDA, who defined our regulatory pathway, but that also successfully introduced the concept of a unilateral facet replacement versus a bilateral facet replacement. It's easy to implant. It's easy to revise. It's straightforward. It doesn't require any surgeon train-up. And it's perfectly suited for MIS as well as ambulatory surgical care centers. We have utilized a team of very high-level consultants to get us to where we are. We have Janice Hogan with regard to regulatory affairs, Kenobi Martin with regard to ORL patents. We have a strategic partnership, as I said, with Precision Spine. Empirical Technologies are going to be doing our IDE study. Medical device development did all of our cadaveric testing, which we just recently performed. And in that study, that cadaveric study that we recently performed, TOPS did the same thing. So this is a bilateral device that's already in the market. Flexion extension, most important. When TOPS did their study, they were able to reproduce 55% of lumbar flexion extension. We reproduced it 93%. We assessed the forces of the screw at the pedicle bone interface, which is critical because if there's a lot of force there in degradation, things are going to break down. We were 40% less than TOPS. In terms of the investments, we're looking to raise $15 million. We have to go through an IDE protocol or an IDE pathway, PMA pathway, based upon our FDA meeting. If we were to receive that $15 million, we anticipate that we would enter market in March of 2028. There are, however, exit points when we complete our IDE, when the FDA comes and checks us out halfway through that IDE, as well as when we complete. But our valuation along this process, that slope is going to be incredibly steep. This is the epitome of disruptive technology. We are talking an $18 billion market. We are speaking to 85% of that market. Artificial lumbar disc, only 15% because of facet problems. So this is huge. We are looking, again, to raise the $15 million, in effect, at the very bottom. But the slope of that valuation curve stands to earn a tremendous amount of money. And we would love to talk to anybody who is interested in our project. Thank you.